The White House is already leaking like a sieve. This is We the People. As you probably already know, we've had quite a few leaks coming out of the White House. The Washington Post actually detailed no less than 12 White House staffers leaking information from Donald Trump's White House. But I want to talk about one specific White House leaker, or I should say, one possible White House leaker. An individual who calls himself Whistleblower at White House Leak. This would be a Twitter account that recently popped up on the radar shortly after Donald Trump took office. His first tweet was very telling all by itself. I get all these tweets from a capture post from Daily Kos. So all you have to do is go to dailykos.com and you can locate the same material that I'm reading from. Apparently the first post is pretty basic. It states, I am a mid-level White House staffer and I can't believe what I signed up for. At real Donald Trump and most of his staff are nuts. I'm going to chronicle it all. Now first let me begin by saying that we have no way of really knowing if this is coming from inside the White House. Not a word of it can be verified as coming from an actual White House staffer. But we do have the fact that the tweets themselves are interesting and they seem to match the information that the Washington Post has released. Not to mention the fact that now suddenly this same White House leak Twitter account has gone dark and suddenly stopped posting. So let's review a few of the ones that I find to be more interesting. First, he starts out with, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm sure I will lose my job, but I'm going to tell you what I see and hear. That's the very first post that's noted here in the Daily Kos. That still doesn't tell us much about this guy. And then he admits that he has very little access to President Trump himself, but his boss does. And he is absolutely demoralized by the unsteadiness of POTUS. In the next tweet it says, Trump can't stay on message. He only wants to investigate the states that he lost. Now, obviously, this is directly in relation to the comments that Trump's been making about a rigged election and 3 million illegal aliens voting for Hillary Clinton, or he would have won the popular vote. There is no one anywhere in the media, including Fox, who puts any validation on that statement, the 3.5 million illegal aliens. As noted today on CNN, there are 32 secretaries of state who are all together in a council of secretary of states throughout the United States, and they released a joint statement of these 32 states saying that they have no suspicions of voter fraud or illegal voters. And there are 31 states in the United States that are currently controlled. The voting rolls and the voter registries are controlled by Republican Secretary of States. So Donald Trump is saying that these Republican Secretary of States are colluding to rob him of the popular vote. And now Only thing Donald Trump really wants to investigate are the states that which Hillary Clinton won. At least that's what Whistleblower tells us. That should tell you something right there, if it's true. The next tweet, word to the wise. Donald Trump has no idea how to fix Obamacare. He still doesn't even know what a high-risk pool is. Well, the terminology may not be something that he's ever been used to, so that doesn't shock me that he doesn't understand that. I could probably walk out my front door and speak with 20 people on the street where I live and only find about 5 or 6 that know what high-risk pool means when it comes to health care. So it's not that surprising that he doesn't know what that term is. As for knowing how to fix it, I don't believe he wants to fix it. So it's a statement that I really don't put any credit in, and it doesn't mean shit to me. Whistleblower goes on in another tweet to say, boss said that president wants to call the 4 senators who voted against Governor Haley to teach them a thing or two. Now, this is right down Donald Trump's pipe. 4 senators voted against Governor Haley of South Carolina to be the secretary of the UN, or the ambassador to the UN, I should say. I don't remember what those 4 senators are, and it doesn't matter. What matters is this is exactly the kind of thing that I see Donald Trump having problems with. And these 4 senators who voted against her could have very well been Democrats or Republicans, but if they were Republicans, I'm sure he was ticked off. But this shows the fact that he's unhinged, and he doesn't like people questioning his authority at all, even senators who were supposed to be able to have the authority to question him in the first place. In another tweet, Whistleblower states that Donald Trump thinks WikiLeaks is on his side, and he wants to leak information directly to WikiLeaks to corner his political opponents. Now, this is very interesting. Again, we don't know if this guy's for real or not, so let's not put him in the class of fake news, because, yeah, this is fake news because we can't validate it, but it's not fake news in the fact that I'm not telling you that it's real. I'm saying it's suspicious and it's interesting. But the fact is, this sounds, again, just like something Donald Trump would say or think. Of course he thinks WikiLeaks is on his side. WikiLeaks did nothing but leak only information on Hillary Clinton and the DNC during the entire election. Did he do anything to leak anything? Did Julian Assange leak anything on Donald Trump's taxes? No. Did WikiLeaks leak anything at all having to do to Donald Trump or Mike Pence or anybody in the Republican Party? No. Did WikiLeaks do anything in any way, shape, or form whatsoever that could be construed as a help or benefit to Hillary Clinton in the election season? No. So is WikiLeaks on his side? Sounds to me like they are, so I think Donald Trump would probably believe that they are too. But this idea that he may leak information to WikiLeaks to corner his opponents is very interesting. It's something I hadn't even considered, and it's something you, as a voter, should watch for. Because if this guy Whistleblower is for real, and all of a sudden we start getting internal memos and internal information from the White House and Congress that shouldn't be sent out to the public, posted on WikiLeaks, we know 2 things. Whistleblower is real, and Donald Trump is about as corrupt as you can get. Now, Whistleblower has been tweeting to all kinds of news outlets, among them Fox News and Robert Costa and a number of others, even Cosmopolitan, which is kind of odd, which makes me inclined to think that Whistleblower might actually be a woman. But we'll move on. Now, this is the next tweet that really shocks me and causes me a great deal of pause. Fox News made a report on the number of people killed in Chicago. And if you recall, Donald Trump, in one of his statements, one of his lunatic statements, stated that while President Obama was giving his farewell speech, that 2 people were shot and killed in Chicago while that speech was being given. That's a lie. That's not a falsehood. That's not a misconstruction of the facts. That's not an abstract truth, and it's certainly not an alternative fact. It's a goddamn lie. And it's been proven by the city of Chicago and the Chicago Police Department and the superintendent of police for the Chicago Police Department and the Chicago mayor. No one was shot during that speech. No one within this entire city was shot during that speech. And no one was murdered with a gun during those 2 hours. Now, someone was shot after the speech, but they weren't killed. So Donald Trump just likes to make shit up. But we already knew that. But on this, whistleblower states, this is deadly serious. He, Donald Trump, wants to send in the National Guard. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but go Google it. Posse Comitatus. Okay? It's the rule that the military cannot be sent in to police civilians. The only time there's an exception to that rule is disaster assistance. Hurricanes, tornadoes, etc., etc. But policing a military force in a major U.S. city, this is a violation of our Constitution and a direct threat of the possibility of a military state. Not to mention, he would be usurping the powers in the Constitution of the state of Illinois. Not to mention, he would be overthrowing the elected government of the state of Illinois and the elected government of Chicago. Now, you can say what you want about the murders in Chicago. You can go ahead and talk about all the problems that Chicago has, and I won't argue with you a bit. But if whistleblower is a real person in the White House, and if whistleblower knows what he's talking about, then Donald Trump has been talking about sending the National Guard into Chicago. Now, some of you out there might think, well, that's a great idea. Wait until he sends them to your city. And until then, I'd suggest you shut the fuck up. Now, here's another interesting tweet. Apparently, Chief of Staff Reince Priebus considered tendering his resignation other than face off against Fox News Sunday after that blow-up Saturday over the issues involving how many people appeared in the inauguration. He had to go defend Donald Trump on Fox News, and apparently Reince is having some serious issues, because this isn't the only tweet. The second one says, old friend Speaker Ryan had to talk to Priebus about out of resigning. Priebus is single-handedly holding the West Wing together. Now, we've heard a lot of stories about the things that are going on in the White House. There's infighting. There's people jockeying for position. People are trying to keep influence on Trump. And if the only one that's keeping this thing from blowing up in their face is Reince Priebus, and here we are 7 days in, and Reince is ready to hit the street. Oh, this isn't going to be pretty. Another tweet states that Donald Trump doesn't give a crap about abortion. His words were, and they're quoted here, "It doesn't affect me, so why should I care?" So you religious right people out there who do care, congratulations on your voting. There's another tweet here about him refusing to give up his phone since he loves his Twitter so much, but I won't bore you with that. Here's another interesting tweet. Whistleblower states that there is real talk inside the White House of Omarosa taking over as press secretary. And then he says wheels off. Yeah, that would be wheels off to have Omarosa taking over as press secretary. Can you imagine Omarosa in the press room trying to deal with a hostile press? I've got a feeling that chances are she would handle it even worse than Sean Spicer. But we'll have to see. But I've also read in other places that Donald Trump does not like Sean Spicer, that it was Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan who pushed Sean Spicer on Donald Trump to make him press secretary. I don't know why they did this, because he's a horrible press secretary. I mean, even if he was telling the truth all the time, he has horrible presence. He doesn't hold himself well. He doesn't have a dignified posture. He doesn't speak well in front of people, and he's extremely combative. He's a horrible press secretary. Now add the fact that he's a liar, and it gets worse. But I've heard also that apparently Kellyanne Conway is jockeying for the job, which would be equally as embarrassing, quite honestly, because we all know that Kellyanne Conway is anything. She's a skilled liar. And I don't believe that anyone in the press would give her any credit whatsoever as press secretary. Whistleblower goes on in several other tweets throughout this list, talking about the fact that the White House is leaking everywhere, that they know that someone in the White House, assuming people in charge, know about his Twitter account, but they don't know who he is or she. And the whips were beginning to crack. The leaks are being threatened crackdown on all leakers inside the White House have been threatened. And then shortly after that, he goes dark. There are several more tweets, but none of them are really worth going over. He does mention at last about the ACA, Obamacare. There's an argument going on between the president, Priebus, and Mike Pence, who don't want to cancel or do away with Obamacare. Bannon does. So there's some internal struggle going on there from that tweet. The rest of it doesn't matter. My point on this, I just wanted to give you this just in the event that you would catch it in your daily news blogs. But this is probably one of the most interesting things that I've seen in the last couple of days. Like I've said before, it's very hard to follow this presidency because there's so much garbage leaking out wherever you go. It's constant. It never ends. But that being said, this tells us a lot about what's going on inside the White House, but at the same time, it tells us nothing we didn't already know. If Whistleblower is a real person, if Whistleblower is inside the White House, we know this. 1, they obviously have leaks that they can't control. And I suspected that from before he ever took the oath, because we had leaks before he took the oath. But they're only going to get worse now, because now he's in power. And people who don't like the things that he's doing, who are inside the building, are going to talk. Donald Trump has mastered the art of being Donald Trump. And the reason he's mastered it is because he has lived in a bubble all of his life. He has surrounded himself with sycophants who tell him yes to everything, who tell him he's great at everything, and who always agree to everything he says. And when they don't, he throws them off the bridge. He doesn't have time for people who tell him no. That's also made clear in the tweets. He loves to ignore people who give him facts, but we already know that as well. That's why I believe, quite honestly, that Donald Trump won't last a year as president of the United States. If this Twitter account is real, it establishes even more that we already know. Donald Trump is unstable, unhinged, and incapable of maintaining a cohesive environment with which to govern our country. And this is where the Republicans need to take heed. A lot of people will suffer if Donald Trump is allowed to continue as our president. And many of the people who will suffer are Republican voters. And if there's anything we know about Republican voters, is if you continually stab them in the back, they get a little pissed off, even more so than liberals. But these same Republicans who voted for Trump, when they find out his true character, are going to want to see him gone. And they're going to want to see some of the heads roll that helped put him there and that helped him destroy this country. Please hit the subscribe button and subscribe to our channel, or you can contact me directly at WTPAmerica@hotmail.com. Or you can become a patron at patreon.com/WTP America. My name is Alan Garrett. This is We the People. Resist.